Well, looks like things are looking up, and it's uh, it's kind of important that folks understand that if somebody says that they're in their wilderness season, there is significance to that. Look up wilderness season. If you don't know what wilderness season is, look it up. A lot of religions uh, make reference to the wilderness season, and basically, in a nutshell, it's this. One of the stories in the Bible, Jesus Christ, uh, he went off, and folks didn't know where he was going, or he didn't tell anybody. He just kind of went off into the wilderness. And during that time, he contemplated, what was going on in his life and whatnot. That was the mission. And so, that's about where I am. And I've been on that mission since, I want to say, 2007. So here's the time, story time, that I tell family and friends what happened in 2007. I think I made a video about it. I posted it, then I pulled it down. Because I think at that point I didn't believe that people were, receptive to it, simply because of the times, but the times are different now. Everybody's in, we're in an awakening stage. And the awakening started around 2012 when we moved into the house of Aquarius. So, yeah, the house of Aquarius. We'll make a whole nother video on the precession of the equinox and what that all means in about 2012. And if you want to do a little homework and check it out before we move into it, then feel free. Precession of the equinox, house of Aquarius, 2012, and what the representation of that means. So anyway, and that's real. That's not fanciful. That's scientific, okay? So that was that's when folks, a lot of people that, believe in that whole cosmos thing, as I do, we were moving into an awakening in 2012, and it just so happens in 2012, that was the reason that I made the journey to Africa. That was my reasoning, because I knew that this whole moving into the house of Aquarius was happening. So let's go back to 2007. So 2007, I was actually, I'm not going to start there. Let's start here. Let's start when it all happened. 2007, I'm at work, and one of my responsibilities, think of an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean. Kind of think of that. So that was that's not what it was, but think of that kind of a platform, and that's where my job That's what I was doing at that time. I was out on a basic platform, and that platform had loading arms to load tankers, and I was in the what we call the monitor house, and you can look down at either end of this platform. You know, we could do two different ships, you know, two different times. So one of the times I was out there, I was on duty, I was by myself on watch, and I'm looking down at the north end, and we had five, I can't remember now. I'm retired now, so I try to forget stuff like that. But at 4 or 5, let's say four loading arms. And but I saw 8. And you know, I did the little head shake thing and rubbed my eyes. And now I'm still seeing 8. And everything in the distance was double. Everything in the distance was double. Things up close, not double. Things in the distance, double. So I got up, of course, and I went into the bathroom, washed my face, you know, got myself together. I didn't feel bad. It's just that's what I was seeing. So as I'm walking back into the monitor house, the floor was like at this kind of an angle, and I'm walking, trying to compensate for that, but and kind of stumbling, but of course it was not like this. It was flat. So I knew something was wrong. So I get myself together and I get into the monitor house and I sit down, I get on the computer, and I'm start looking up things, you know, high blood pressure, diabetes, just trying to be Dr. Me, you know, trying to figure out what was going on. And of course I was a little nervous, and it was only things from a distance. I could see things up close. I could look at the computer and everything was normal. So, believe it or not, I managed to get myself home, drive home. And what I realized was that if I covered one eye, I didn't see double. So that's how I got home. So of course, the next day, I called out, and then I set an appointment for an ophthalmologist. And keep in mind, at that time, I didn't have a primary care physician. 2007, I did not have a primary care physician. I did not have a doctor since I was in the Navy, and I got out of the Navy in 1989. 1989. That's how long out, and this is 2007. So the ophthalmologist, he was nice enough to take me, and I believe his name was Dr. Warner, if I remember correctly. So he was in Annapolis, and so I go, and he takes a look, and he says, "There's nothing wrong with my eyes." So he says, what we need to do, he says, we need to get an MRI, and I'm gonna set one up. He said, first of all, he drilled me and said, you don't have a primary care physician. I said, no, doc, I don't. I said, I guess I feel like I'm Superman, you know. I've been healthy all my life and no issues. He says, well, in addition to getting this MRI, we're gonna get you a doctor. I said, okay. So he recommended a doctor that was near my home. His name was Dr. Freeze, not Freeze, Freeas, Dr. Freeze. That's how you pronounced it. So I get the MRI, and then he said, you go report, you know, like the next day. I can't remember, it may have been the same day. I think it was the same day, because he thought that this was kind of a serious situation. So I get the MRI, and then after the MRI, he wanted me to go see Dr. Freeze. who was also nice enough to take me. I guess they talked on the phone or whatever. So anyway, I go see Dr. Freeze, and as I'm in Dr. Freeze, he's giving me a exam, workup, and everything, taking blood, et cetera, et cetera. And while I'm sitting in his office, he gets a phone call, and the phone call is from Dr. Warner. Like I said, I believe that was his name. And I could see him talking, throwing, nodding his head, and I'm sitting right there, and he turns to me and he says, that was Dr. Warner. He got the results of the MRI. He says, either you can go back to see him and let him talk to you, or I can tell you what he found. I said, yo, Doc, I'm right here, man. What you got? What's going on? He says, well, from the MRI, it appears that you have a brain tumor. I said, oh, wow. I said, okay. And he's looking at me, and then I said, so what do we do? How do we take care of that? Just like that. Naive. What do we do? How do we take care of this? He says, well, it's not that simple. We really now have to get some other doctors involved, neurologists, neurosurgeons, oncologists. And right when he said oncologists, I knew what that meant. That meant cancer. He says, we have to get these doctors involved and try to figure out what's going on. And I said, okay, well, yeah, And so, fast forward. Now keep in mind, I've got double vision. At that time, I've got double vision. And I had double vision from that point, from that day before, for the next 2 years, I had double vision. And the only way I was able to get around was wearing a patch over either eye. If I covered one eye, I could see normal. If I covered another eye, I could see normal. So during all the two years, now I was starting to get symptoms of extraordinary pain, extraordinary headaches, extraordinary, enough that they had me on painkillers, specifically oxycodone. Sometimes it was Oxycontin. And then sometimes it was Percocet. I think they started me off with Percocet. That wasn't good enough. It wasn't strong enough. And then they moved up to Oxycontin, then oxycodone. And the difference between Oxycontin and oxycodone, if anybody knows about this stuff, these opiates, the oxycodone is the type that I had was a time release. So you would take it, right? I think it was like 40 milligrams. You take it, and it was time release. So it would be taking care of the pain over an 8-hour period, right? And it worked. It worked big time, big time. That's why opiates now is such a big deal. That's why it's so addictive. That's why we have a problem in the world probably, but I know for sure in the United States. So anyway, in the meantime, I got oncologists, neurosurgeons, all these doctors checking me at different hospitals. I'm in Annapolis. I'm up at University of Maryland. I'm all over the place. And then I was at Hopkins, and they did spinal taps. They wanted to check my spinal fluid, with the fluid that's on your spine. Your spine and your brain are like in a case, like a plastic bag. And so that's how they take the fluid off of your spine. That same fluid is what's going around on your brain. So they were examining that, and they couldn't find it. No cancer that they could find. So, but that was still there. That whatever they were seeing was still there. So one of my doctors at Hopkins said, I tell you what we're gonna do. We're just gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it for the next year. And after that year, we will decide what to do. And we will decide whether, because we don't know exactly, so we'll decide whether it's a tumor or, no, let me back up. He and another doctor, a neurologist, a neurosurgeon in Annapolis said, when I went to his office, he looked at it, he looked at the MRI, the scan, and he said, first thing he said was, "Oh, that's not a tumor." I said, it's that, I'm happy. He said, "That's not a tumor." He said, "I don't know what it is, but it's not a tumor." And then the other doctor said, "Okay, then if he's saying that it's not a tumor, then we need to watch it for a year before we make any moves." Because what they were going to do was go in and try to take it out. So, year went past, and it's only changed a little bit, slightly. It actually shrank. So they knew that it wasn't a tumor. So that's when my guardian angel, I tell you, I named in one of my other videos, I named all the people that saved my life. This guy that I'm getting ready to name is the number one person that saved my life. His name is Dr. Carlos Pardo. Pardo. I'm sure he doesn't mind me giving his name public. He is a neurologist out of Johns Hopkins University, downtown Baltimore, main campus. And he's originally from Columbia, so we had a whole bunch in common when I would talk to him about Columbia. But that's a whole nother story. So anyway, we are like this to this day. So that was 2008 when I met him. Late 2007, going into 2008 when I met him, because it started in 2007, so we had to wait basically, a whole year, like I said. So he looks at it and he also says, "That's not a tumor." He says, "That's inflammation." I said, "Oh shit." I said, what kind of inflammation?" He says, "I don't know, but I'm suspecting that it is neurosarcoidosis." So I don't know whether you guys heard the term sarcoidosis. Sarcoidosis, probably for some people that are up on medical stuff. Anybody that knows Bernie Mac, you guys remember Bernie Mac? He had sarcoidosis. He's one of the more famous people that had sarcoidosis, at least made it public that he had sarcoidosis. And sarcoidosis, it's inflammation that affects usually your lungs and sometimes other organs. And in this case, they call it neurosarcoidosis because it appeared that it was affecting inflammation of my brain, because they couldn't find it anywhere else in my body. It wasn't, of course, like I said, they did spinal taps, they checked my lungs, So sarcoidosis runs in my family. All right. And that's a whole nother topic. We'll talk about the other family members. I'm sure they don't mind. In fact, the three that I know are deceased. Okay, so let's leave it at that for right now. One of them being my mom. All right. So that's one of the reasons they believe she went blind, sarcoidosis. Okay. So he put me on medication, and it started work. What he did was he put me on medication, but the first medication he put me on was a what do you call it? Oh my God. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. Prednisone, basically, but what it was, it's in a liquid form, and they give it to you IV, intravenously, right? And they had a nurse come to my house, and she came regular to hook me up. And then she taught me how to do it myself. I would always have the what do you call it? I call it the connection, but it was always there, just taped down, and then they would send me packets of it. Solumedrol, if anybody's interested. Solumedrol is what this solution is. And you got to keep it cold, refrigerated, and whatnot. And of course, when it goes in, it's cold, and you can feel it. And I could feel it going through my. In fact, the first time I did it, I could feel it going, and I could feel it go straight up to my brain. And it worked. It started working. And so we stayed with that, and then after because you don't do that forever. So after that initial it was a mega dose, right? Like 3,000 milligrams. So stop that. And then they put me on prednisone. So if anybody remembers me back during that time, I was really, really big. That was because of the prednisone. The prednisone causes you to gain massive weight. You become very emotional. Can be, mood swings, all kind of things can start going on. Psychosis, all kind of stuff, all kind of crazy stuff. And we'll talk about all that later. We're not going to talk about it in this video. But all said and done, because I'm sure you guys want to know, as a result of that, they were able to take care of it. And then I was on medication, then I stopped taking the medication, my fault. So then it came back, right? And I stopped going to the doc, and it came back. And how did I know it came back? Because on one of my trips overseas, at 35,000 feet, I had a tonic-clonic seizure. Tonic-clonic seizure is the one that can kill you. And I had two of them at 35,000 feet on the airplane. They had to make an emergency landing. And when I woke up, I don't remember it happening. And when I woke up, they told me, this is what the nurse told me. The nurse told me, first she asked me, do you know where you are? I said, it looks like I'm in a hospital. They said, yes. And of course, I'm laid out. I'm in the emergency room. I'm in the intensive care unit. She says, you're in the intensive care unit at Minneapolis Hospital. I said, oh shit, I thought I was on. She says, I know. She says, your doctor Pardo, he's aware. She says, what we were able to do, we got in touch with your mother, because she was my contact person. We got in touch with your mother, and your mother's the one that pointed us in the direction of Dr. Pardo. That's what I always say. My mom saved my life a couple times. Okay, so this was one of the times. So they said you had two massive seizures. Thank heaven. This is her talking to me. She says, thank goodness there was a doctor on board that was able to take care of you. Get your vitals, to calm, so they could make the emergency landing. So that was the second stage in all this that has happened to me. And then after that, I was able to make my way back. They had to, of course, make sure. The only way I was able to get out of the intensive care unit, they got in touch with Dr. Pardo. Dr. Pardo said, you stay there until everything is stable. That's the only way you need to think about leaving and coming back, and let alone getting on the airplane. So they, of course, made sure all that was straight. I think I was there maybe 2-3 days, maybe. So I was able to get on a plane by myself and get back BWI. And they told me before I left Minneapolis, they said that you can't drive after you've had a seizure. You can't drive for 3 months. I said, okay. And all I'm thinking is, I'm thinking about work, obviously, and I'm thinking about my truck. I had a Expedition, and it was parked at the airport. So, I can't remember how I got that shit home. Anyway, I get to the BWI and I catch a Uber home. My truck is still at the airport. I can't remember how I got it home. I cannot remember how I got it home. I cannot remember. I got it home, but I didn't drive. But anyway, that's a side story. So anyway, and then I had a couple more seizures after that. Thank goodness, of course, I wasn't driving. They were all in the house. In fact, one of them, I was playing the piano, and it hit me, and I was conscious. I knew this one was happening, and I remember hitting my knee on the piano, not this piano, but my piano at home, and I hit my knee on the piano, and then I fell back, and I hit my head. I can't remember what it was, a table neck. I can't remember, but anyway, I hit the floor, and my phone. And I had a seizure. I was seizing out on the floor, and I didn't lose consciousness. But I actually remember, and it's, of course, no one wants to have a seizure. It's really, 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 really scary, and really, because the first one that I had on the plane, I was unaware of it. This one, I was aware of it. So this is my first time experiencing it, and it was scary, and yeah. It was scary, and it hurts. It hurts bad because you're everything's tense, right? So I pulled. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't stand up. So I pulled myself off my couch. My couch is really big, one of those heavy ones, and I pulled myself along the bottom of it, grabbing like the legs, and pulled myself into the kitchen because my phone was in the kitchen, and I reached up on the counter and pulled the phone down. I know all this is unbelievable, even when I tell it, but this stuff happened. This is just one. This is one of the stories of the seizures. This is just one of them. There were many. So I called 911. They came. They said, "Can you unlock the door?" I said, "My door is already unlocked." Right? And the reason I kept my door unlocked is because I was nervous that something could happen to me. So I always kept even now, my door it's unlocked. It's closed, but it's unlocked. Wherever I am, even when I'm home in the States, my door stays unlocked. Now I live in a condominium, so you can't get up to my door. But my door to my unit is always unlocked if I'm home. Always unlocked because of all that stuff that happened back in 2000. When did that happen? That was 2015, somewhere like that. 2004. I can't remember exactly the year. But anyway, so the paramedics come. I'm laid out on the kitchen floor. They come in and they ask me, "Can you get up?" And I said, I don't think so. I can try. And as I was getting up, I had another seizure. And of course, they were there. Thank goodness they were there. And they're telling me, just relax, don't fight it, just let it pass. And of course, and I'm going through all the motion, So then I recovered from it, and they said, "Do you think you can stand up now?" I said, "Yeah, I think I can stand up." So and the reason that I wanted to stand up is because I had messed on myself, right? And they said, "You want to go in the bathroom and clean yourself up? Because we are taking you to the hospital." I said, "Okay." So I go in the bathroom. They were with me. They assisted me, and I went in the bathroom. And as I was cleaning myself up, I had another seizure, and I fell into the bathtub. They were there with me. Told me, and then they helped clean me up after I had it. Then they said, well, you're not gonna stand up. We're gonna put you in a stretcher. And then they took me out in the stretcher. And I remember my neighbors, I was conscious. I could speak. And my neighbors next door, they're like, oh, are you okay? Are you good? And I said, yeah, I'm good. I'm good, So they took me to the hospital. Of course, they got in touch with Dr. Pardo, and he's like, oh, here we go. And this is so I went through the whole thing. He says, you stop taking your medication. Went through all that. So, now I'm on seizure medicine. Keppra is what it was. And that's some serious ass stuff. Now, a whole bunch of other stuff happened to that. I went back to 3 months, stayed at mom's house. Everything was fine. I recovered. The inflammation, I had taken all the prednisone, went through that whole drill again with the Solumedrol, and then they got all the inflammation to come down again. I went back to work, and then a couple months later, I want to say, I can't remember the exact year. I'll get the exact year for you. I was driving to my mom's house, and I had another seizure while I was driving, and crashed my car. And so went through this whole thing again. So another 3 months, no driving, going through. So this is an ongoing thing. Okay, this is a period of chapter in my life where that had been going on since 2007. So by the time, and then I had another seizure. It goes on. It goes on. So when it's all said and done, finally, we were able to get everything under control. So I am no longer on seizure medicine. I still take one medication. It's not prednisone. I told the doc, I said, I can't take prednisone. It gets me wacky, emotional, and all kind of stuff, and breakout, and fat, get big, face all big. They call it moon face, all that. So people that know me, even my people that I work with, they may not be aware of all this that was going on. I kept it kind of to myself. Well, they knew because I was wearing the patch. They knew something was up, but they didn't know about all the seizures and whatnot. They didn't know anything about that. So got over the seizure thing. Like I said, I'm not on any seizure medication. I've been flying all over the world. I'm over the world right now. I do take one medication that he has me on. We are even tapering off of that. He says, as long as you stay on it, we'll continue to taper. And he says up until, I think he said the age of 62. He says, if everything looks good, then we will at that point have tapered off to just not taking it anymore, because I will suspect that you have gotten everything under control. Now, I'm telling you all that because I think we started this by talking about people in their wilderness season. That's how we started all this, right? So, and people may say, well, aren't you scared? Don't you get nervous, being off by yourself? Let me tell y'all something, folks. I've been to the mountaintop, and I've been there and back a couple times. I've been away from here a couple times. I have no fear of anything because of those chapters that I went through in my life. And so when you hear me say, spread love, that's the reason that I say it. Because at the mountaintop, when I was in one of those 3 months at my mom's crib, I had a recurring dream every night for weeks, over and over again, same dream. And like I said, I'm not a religious person. I'm very spiritual. I'm on that soul tip, right? And so what was being said to me was, you get up out of this situation, you do whatever you can do to spread as much knowledge and love that you have. So there was a times in my life when I would keep what I know to myself. That's why I am so open and an open book. And keep in mind, I am not naive, I'm not gullible, right? But in my past life, people would take kindness for weakness. But now I know how to, blend and discern and, So back to what people say, aren't you afraid that something may happen to you when you're out there? No. Simply because if something happens, I won't know. I've experienced that. When I had that tonic-clonic, the two of them on that airplane, I had no clue. That's why I'm not afraid, because if something happens, if you're up out of here, you're up out of here. You're done. But I have no fear when it comes to that. And if I were to pass away right here, I'd be found eventually. I'd be found, Speaking of that, I did tell two people know where I am. The cat sitter knows that I'm where I am, and my brother. I reached out to my brother to be responsible to let him know at least where I am. So if I don't show up somewhere, and then the people that are here that I am working with to get my business taken care of here, they know where I live. Okay. But if that's it. So back to the spreading love thing. So everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story. Okay. And you don't know what people have been through. That's why you need to treat everybody with respect. Treat everybody as though that's how you want to be treated. Everybody. It doesn't matter who it is. As I've said before, it could be the king of Rome to the unfortunate person that you may run into homeless on the street. It doesn't matter. Spread love. I know that was long. I know it was long. It's long for me because I got stuff to do. But I figured since I'm relaxed, I'm chilling, this was an opportunity for me, because I know I've been alluding to it and several of videos about prior illnesses that I had. And what I disseminated to you guys today, that's basically half of it. There's much more. Much more. But if I sit down with you and you ask me, I will be more than happy to give you all the other different things that happen. And the reason it's important that folks that have been through things to share it with people, because what it does is you hope it, first of all, opens up their heart so that they understand that them moving about and how they treat people is very important. So that's what you're hoping for. Some people, it just won't matter. Other people that are receptive to that kind of thing, and of course, I'm not going to just tell anybody. Whoever gets that kind of knowledge are going to be people that I trust. Period. Full stop. All right. So spread love, and I'll see you guys out on the scene. Peace.